Doing this is going to rip my guts out, I'm pretty sure. But I feel compelled to do it anyway. So here it goes. I'm out shooting with my mom's old manual lenses. I've adapted them to my mirrorless camera. It's one of the cool things about a mirrorless camera. You can basically adapt any lens. Not only SLR lenses, but some really unorthodox lenses too. People are adapting projector lenses. It's neat. And there's tons of cool vintage lenses out there. But these 3 lenses belong to my mom, the adapters on the left. Information's kind of scarce on these lenses. Either that or my researching skills are. Best I can tell, they were manufactured between the early 1970s and early 1980s. Somewhere in there. But you know, out here shooting with my mom's old lenses, I couldn't help but remember this one specific day I spent with her. In 2001, well, her and my dad both, the family, just the 3 of us. My mom wanted to go shoot some photos, my dad wanted to go collect rocks for the driveway, and I wanted to tag along, hang out with my parents, shoot some family video. It might be really interesting to try to recreate that day, find all those same locations. There are some clues on the video left behind by my younger self that I could use to help me figure out where we stopped that day. And although this original video is from 2001, I was shooting it on a late 1980s camcorder. Panasonic Omni Movie, if I'm not mistaken. Sadly, I don't own it anymore. But this was just shot from a GoPro around my neck, as usual. But in addition to all the photos being taken through my mom's lenses, as much as possible I also wanted to shoot video with her lenses. So that's the goal. Sometimes GoPro or drone or whatever video is going to be unavoidable. But this is not one of the spots we stopped that day. So what am I doing here taking photos? That's the question that I'm asking myself. Well, I gave it some thought. I think I'm just afraid to get started. I'm not sure what this is going to drag out of my psyche. Not sure if I can handle it. This year I've made a couple of attempts since my mom's death about 8 months ago to do some kind of an art project to honor her, pay tribute to her. But I found it impossible to get started. Seems like a good idea. But then I sort of get whacked right in the face with a giant wave of sadness. It's tough to choose to go through that. But then I have this self-destructive art side to me that's like, oh, it hurts, does it? Well, so much the better. You know, using your mom's death as a catalyst for a creative project. That goal is basically incompatible with personal comfort. If it's not making you sad, you're probably doing it wrong. So I got on with the mission of figuring out where we went that day. I knew, generally speaking, where the first location was, chronologically. I mean, that is, I knew within a 10-mile radius, spread out across 3 different towns or villages. But, you know, you would be surprised how unhelpful that knowledge was. I looked everywhere, for hours and hours and hours, for days and days. This trait I have, this willingness to get engaged in such a project like this, which ultimately benefits nothing. My wife actually compliments me on this. She calls it determination. That feels good, because I think of it more like the obsession of a crazy person. But yes, it is a trait that I possess. But yeah, it can be inconsistent. I can be unsure back and forth, especially regarding getting started. But once I'm sure this is the project, the objective, I don't think I could stop at that point even if I wanted to. I become driven to the point of absurdity. Also, this is not some gorgeous tourist attraction I'm looking for. It's not the 8th wonder of the world, nor is it the 9th. It is in fact a dirt patch next to some nondescript road. And then all of a sudden that dirt patch and that road were right in front of me. I actually found it. That was so surprising. I don't think I, based on the intensity of my reaction, expected to find it, but here I am. This is the closest I've ever come to visiting my mom since I lost her. Longer ago, really. She had Alzheimer's, and the last few years were very rough. As cliched as this may sound, this was meant to represent my mom and I as flowers, with her kind of withered and in the background, but basically we're both out of focus. My emotional state was shifting rather rapidly, beginning with just disbelief that I found the place, into a gut punch, basically, regarding the amount of significance I've built up in my mind, having searched for this place for 3 days. And I did immediately feel that connection. I'm standing in a spot where she was. So I was feeling the joy and the hope, the excitement, into the loss and heartache and profound emptiness. Not emptiness in the sense that I feel nothing. Indeed, I'm feeling too much. Emptiness in the sense of the giant void left in her absence. So on the one hand, it's overwhelming to stand in the spot where I stood with her decades prior. Equally overwhelming, though, the sense that I do so now alone. That she's gone forever. And gone, that's really hard to understand, but forever is the part that I just can't even begin to grasp. It's just so difficult to piece together even one single day of somebody's life.
Can I take a picture of you?
So much gets lost. The big stuff, yes, but I'm more thinking about just the tiny details, where they were, what they did. But on this day I was able to get some of them back, battling against time on my mom's behalf. But then of course I'm gonna die too, losing those details all over again. But maybe this video will go on, preserve them in some sense. I got rained out. I waited an hour, but the rain never really stopped, so I came back the next morning. I really had no intention of coming back. The truth is I was done, but I felt some sort of magnetic attraction. It did, in some ridiculous sense, feel like my mom was here. Like coming back to this place would reconnect me to my mom in some small way. And I found that urge to be irresistible. But when she was here, she jumped out, she took a few photos, she moved on. That's what I was intending to do, also. I just have a bit of trouble with that last part, the moving on part. It's always been my weakness. But I did. I moved on. The next three, or final three locations, are all in the same area. 2 of them I'm pretty confident I can find, even though I haven't been back since 2001. I basically know where they are. The third, however, I pretty much think there's no hope of finding. Certainly going to try, though. But here we are at the next location, which is freaking me out all over again. But I had no particular plan about what I was going to do at any of these locations. I had a copy of my mom's photos. Was I going to shoot exact duplicates of them? I didn't know. That's not what I ended up doing. I had a copy of the video. I did shoot some shots on video to kind of match the original video. That was at least a good way to get started. But I'll tell you, digging through that material on my phone was not what I wanted to be doing while I was out here. I just wanted to be out here, experience something. Didn't even really care about taking photos. I was out here for 2 or 3 hours and shot 9 photos total. 9. And roughly as many short video clips. Like, oh hey, here was the spot my dad was just walking. Except he's not walking there anymore. Instead, he's dying of cancer 1,000 miles away, and I can't visit him. That's a long story, and one I've already told in a previous video, so if you're curious, I'm sure you'll find it. And I went into this under the impression I would be building it around the idea of showcasing my mom's photos somehow. So why am I not doing that? Ultimately, it just felt wrong. There's so many reasons, honestly, tons to unpack there, but I don't know, that pressure of making a video good enough to be the vessel for her work was a level of pressure I couldn't deal with. And the reverse of that is even worse, the idea that I might be using her work to sell my crappy video. And I have no way of knowing what shots she thought were good versus which ones she didn't like, and how comfortable she'd be showing them. Plus, I happen to know a lot of times she was shooting photos that were meant to just serve as reference material for paintings that she would do. She was also a painter. She would shoot a close-up of a plant or a tree or something because she wanted to incorporate something like that into a painting that she was already working on. So I just need to give this all a lot more thought before I make a decision. But I love that she's out here shooting with 2 cameras. One's an SLR, one's a point and shoot. And earlier when she was stepping over that guardrail, that was so cool to see, so unexpected. She and I, we're like the same person. I wish we'd done this more often, though. I don't really know that much about my mom as a photographer, and that's a regret. Her thought process and whatnot, we never talked about it. Wish we had. But I asked her a few years ago if she remembered what her favorite focal length was to shoot with. 50mm. Same here. I swear we're the same person. Just 2 years after this video was shot, I was working as a full-time professional photographer, and I don't really have a memory of my mom and I sharing photography as a common interest between us from this point forward. It's a shame. Weird, too, that we did have that before I started doing it for a living, but not after. I can think of 1, 2, 3 times that we went out and took photos together, and that's it. It's a sad reality. 4 times. Or actually maybe 5. I just can't remember if 2 locations happened on the same day. But far too few. Or that's a little awkward to say. Not nearly enough.
I know, it's everywhere and you can't get rocks. I've got my eye on that one now.
Uh-oh, you better remember to pick it up before we leave.
Well, it's drying off.
Welcome to the unfindable spot, which I found almost by accident. I mean, just some trees and some bushes. It looks like every other spot around here. I just saw a little place to pull in. I thought, hey, maybe that's that one spot. And it was. And it was as simple as that. It's crazy. And that leaves just one more location left to find. And I already know I'm gonna find it. You just follow this road until it ends. I mean, granted I haven't been there since 2001, but it's just right at the top of the mountain, sort of hard to screw that up. I do remember one detail of my mom's thought process that she shared with me. I know that she was very proud of the fact that she didn't take multiple shots of the same composition or similar to my own philosophy. She would take a shot and she would move on, and she was very proud of that. And if I'm being honest, so am I. Back when I was an overshooter, I was getting in the way of my own progress, didn't even know it. But with the rediscovery of each location, there is this solemn feeling, a recognition that I can only rediscover these places just the one time. I can only feel this feeling just the one time. I'm using them up, in effect, and in so doing, losing the ability to reconnect with my mom again, this way, in the future. But in 2001, when we got home and looked at the video I had shot on top of the mountain, we noticed it had come out a bit scrambled. A buzzing noise, a ghost image. We figured it was these antennas. Wondered if they had scrambled our brains in a similar way. But just please learn from my mistake. Your parents are going to die. Your children are going to die. Probably after you, but not necessarily. Your spouse, they're all going to die. Everyone. For real. Doesn't seem like it. Maybe that it's real, but it is. It's really going to happen. So share your interests. Do more things together. You'll never regret that you shared and did more, but you will regret that you didn't do enough together. All these shots of my mom standing in a place, and then the same shot, sans mom. To me, they're all about her absence. Of course, they're really just locations like any other, but I'm incapable of seeing them that way. They are locations that previously contained my mother, and which no longer do. So take what you want from that. I found it all incredibly sad. Each of these spots brought me a new level of sadness. Now, this is the point where I say it was all ultimately a very healing experience for me. Yeah, but I don't know that that's really true. I wish. This experience just made me really sad, honestly. I don't know. In general, photography has been a good way of working through all of this, but I think I'm just feeling particularly sad at the moment. But my mom's lenses, they're gorgeous. The images they produce are very cool. Full of charm. In an era of perfect lenses, perfect images, perfect everything. Boring and perfect. They're more than just a little refreshing to use. Character, they've got it. And browsing around the used market, these lenses have not maintained their value at all. They're ridiculously cheap. I can't even believe how cheap they are. If I didn't already own them, I'd place an order this very instant. The 28mm I adore for video. Wide open, it's gorgeous. A bit soft, but a softness that really works for video. I plan to use it for video going forward. The 50mm sucks wide open for video, but wide open for photos, it's gorgeous. Loads of character. And very, very sharp, even wide open. You can absolutely nail sharp focus with it at f1.8. The 80-200 lens, I suppose, is my least favorite of the three, but having said that, it's still really good. I guess I just don't love the max aperture of 4.5. And like the 28mm, it's similarly unsharp, wide open, even with the focus completely dialed in. I mean, it never really is quite dialed in. But it has the most character of the three. It's easily the most filmic looking of the bunch. But because I already knew at this point I wasn't going to replicate my mom's shots, I didn't even look at them, the ones that she took on top of the mountain here, until afterwards. Then I looked at them. It was kind of shocking how similar our subject selection was, and even our composition. Lighting was totally different. But then I got home, and then I edited the video. I mean, that's what I'm doing now, of course, but that's also what I was doing in 2001. With my best friend, Molly, hanging out with me as she always did. Back when computer components were large enough to also serve as beds for cats, which was clearly a superior design. How can we get back to that?